Meme stocks, short squeezes, stock trading apps, the SEC, how are they all tied up? Why are they so fired up about what's been going on? I'm Mike from Canavan Wealth. Let's jump into it. So, anyone who knows the channel knows that I love the Wall Street Journal and get a lot of my news there. This was up on the Wall Street Journal today discussing, kind of the SEC's fears as Securities Exchange Commission. They run, all of the regulations around trading stocks. This is kind of looking back over the last couple of years and the implication that these, kind of app-based stock trading platforms have had and their ties to the meme stock craze and a couple of recent events. And I am not, because of my entanglements in the industry as a financial advisor, I really can't promote or tell you not to use a stock trading platform that I'm not associated with. But what I can say is that I think technology that brings stock trading to the masses has been a huge benefit over the years, which when it goes back to kind of the start of the internet and we started to see a world where your average consumer had much better access to security trading, I think that has been a huge benefit to the American people. And I think, kind of the future of it going app-based and things like that will, in the long run, continue to benefit that. However, what I want to dive into is these concerns that the SEC has, as you see here, about kind of trends that they've seen with the ability for large groups of people to place trades in the system. So that really gets to the meme trading craze that was kind of the 2021, most commonly associated with GameStop and AMC theaters. So the idea here is that a group of people largely associated with being on Reddit figured out that there were shorts on some very specific stocks, specifically GameStop, that made it so that they could apply a short squeeze. Now, I'm not going to go through all the specifics about how short squeezes work, but effectively, when someone has a short position, they are betting that the stock value is going to go down. And that short is going to come due in some amount of time. And what they effectively do is buy up the rest of the stock so that when that person does have to, is forced to end their short position, they have to buy at a substantially higher price and they lose a bunch of money. And the people who bought the stock typically goes up during that time and they're able to sell that stock at a tremendous gain. And a lot of this was associated with kind of sticking it to hedge fund managers at that time that were making these short positions. And at the time, and kind of famously a little bit after, the SEC started to get involved in this because they considered it market manipulation, which we'll just pull up here quickly. This is investor.gov, which is from the SEC. They define market manipulation here as someone artificially affects supplier demand for a security. And they give a couple of examples here. It's really hard to argue that this was not market manipulation, specifically because they were intentionally getting a bunch of investors to buy a specific security to create this short squeeze. Now, their argument is that, effectively hedge funds and all sorts of inside trading and whatnot is always manipulating stock prices. In fact, shorts are very well known as being done specifically to cause concerns in companies' stocks, which may or may not be based on the basics of the company. However, if you want my opinion as to what was going on here, I'm not sure I really cared in that, because at this time it was this battle between hedge funds and a bunch of internet trolls on, the price of it. And that's where it was kind of limited to when it was GameStop and AMC theaters. It's when it starts to get outside of this when it really starts to scare me, which we're going to talk about when we get to the most recent regional banking crisis. But my opinion, it is undeniably market manipulation if you are intentionally buying stock to make it so that a short seller cannot sell it in that time on this scale. It's hard to understand that you can only do this on stocks, or it's not that you can only do this. It's much easier to do this on smaller stocks like GameStop or a theater company. Trying to do this on something like Amazon, Apple would be very, very difficult. So this, this made all sorts of news, and this is really still being figured out as to what it is. The interesting thing about this is that when it is a large online community, how do you go after such an amorphous group, right? This isn't a particular trader or something along those lines. But what I have the biggest problem with it is the idea that they were doing it to stick it to the hedge fund managers. They are doing this to make money, right? That's the added benefit of sticking it to some hedge fund manager or some big investor or something like that who's taking a risk on this short sale is just an added benefit. They would not be doing this if they did not stand to make a bunch of money. And the truth is, a lot of the investors that were caught up in this did not make money. They lost a lot of money on their own, buying in near the top. The stock largely went down after these events, but the people in charge are, in my opinion, manipulating them to stay with the stock effectively so that their positions remain elevated or they can sell out of their own positions before the stock comes back down. So, I don't see this as anything other than good old-fashioned greed. Now, fast forward this to the regional banking crisis that occurred where, what started with Silicon Valley Bank and a number of other banks that started to have problems. And we see a similar phenomenon happening, but now the tables are reversed and we're starting to see massive shorts of banks that may or may not be in bad situations, but now are starting to be kind of pulled apart during this really tough time for banks about interest rates. The Fed has just kind of pulled the carpet out from underneath on some of these banks with raising interest rates as fast as they did. I'm not trying to defer any blame from some of these banks. However, when you're a risk officer, you're trying to understand what the future might look like. You probably aren't going to assume that the Fed is going to raise interest rates faster than they ever have in history. So not to defer any blame from the banks. However, we start to see a very similar phenomenon to the meme trading of 2021 happening in the regional banks with shorting. And there's a pretty good chance that, a lot of the concern over that banking crisis was elevated because of a similar style of trading that is trying to effectively, if you can see a bank starting to struggle and you can overly short it, it's very unlikely you're going to get short squeezed during a banking crisis on a bank stock. So you can short the stock and then effectively cause a run on that bank, which will then cause the bank to go under. The stock goes to zero. As a short seller, you make money on that. That was the biggest concern during that time, is that perfectly good banks were going to get short sold, causing a run on their bank for no reason other than greedy investors. And it's at this point that you have to start to understand, in my opinion, the fact that how important the U.S. economy is to the health of U.S. citizens. And I don't even just mean, although we're going to talk about that, like literal physical health, but the economy is important for everything that we want to accomplish. So before we jump to that, I want to play a clip from The Big Short, which is, there's some setup here. So this is a number of investors who have figured out effectively what's going to happen with the impending market collapse, specifically around collateralized mortgage obligations. The Big Short's a fantastic movie. There's some language in it. If you don't like that, you might want to turn it off. But this short, they have just closed the deal on the short sale that is going to make them a bunch of money. But Brad Pitt, who is a very senior investor at this point, who has kind of stepped back from the investing world at this point in his career, says this.
Stop that. Charlie, oh! Stop it. Stop.
What?
You have any idea what you just did?
Come on, we just made the deal of our lifetimes. We should celebrate.
You just bet against the American economy.
Fuck yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Which means, if we're right, people lose homes, people lose jobs, people lose retirement savings, people lose pensions. You know what I hate about fucking banking? It reduces people to numbers. Here's a number. Every 1% unemployment goes up, 40,000 people die. Did you know that?
No,
Did you know that?
no, I didn't know that.
That's the best clip from a movie that has a fantastic, one-liners and a great story. If you do want to understand what happened during the 2008 global financial crisis, that is a top pick of mine to watch, as long as you can sit through the language. It is that point that I often bring up to people who have this attitude that, like, the financial system is so corrupt, and anytime we can stick it to it, we're doing the little guy a favor. That is, nothing could be further from the truth. If we are causing a financial collapse, even though those particular investors were not causing the financial crisis, they were going to simply profit off the fact that the economy was about to fall apart. I am fairly liberal myself, fairly progressive. I talk in a lot of liberal progressive circles, and yet oftentimes when we talk about environmental issues or civil rights or something, and I say, oh, well, we have to consider the economy in this situation or something along that, and I'll get a response, something along the lines of, oh, we should just, the economy is so corrupt, and we should just let the economy burn. We have to rebuild the this kind of green economy or new civil rights. And I just am always kind of floored, and like, you're never going to accomplish any type of any political agenda, be it conservative, liberal, in the middle of a 2008 like global financial crisis. No one is going to care about what your political aims are when unemployment is soaring. People are worried about providing for their families. That is always going to be their number one concern. So whatever agenda you want to accomplish, and if it is reform the financial system, which I am not against, there are all sorts of problems in the financial system. But if you think you're going to accomplish that in the middle of a financial crisis, I think you're delusional, right? The US economy is the bedrock upon which the world economy is built. And if we're betting against the US economy, or like the regional banking crisis, where we were so close to truly going into another 2008, like at a minimum banking crisis, maybe not a global financial crisis, and we're doing that in some type of view that we're doing it, that we're altruistic and we're helping out the little guy, it's not the case, right? Yeah. Does the CEO not get his bonus that year? Does the board of directors maybe get fired? Yeah, but lots of people lose their jobs. Lots of business, in the case of Silicon Valley Bank, I think people viewed the people that had their money in Silicon Valley Bank as these big corporate entities. No, these were startup tech companies that are trying to ironically build the technology that these traders are using against them, right? Like, these are companies that are trying, and individuals in many cases, or small groups that are trying to build the future world, that might be working on green technology, or the next app that is going to revolutionize the human experience. Was there plenty of greed in that? Yeah, absolutely. We live in a free market. Yeah, we work in a free market. And if you want to build something as robust as the US economy, that and you don't want it to be a free market, you're not going to get my vote. Lots of places have tried it. It's never worked out. Could our system be better? Undeniably, it could be better. But I have a hard time pointing to a better example that is as big and diverse as the US economy. So I just want to kind of on this party note say that this technology that is making trading more accessible to the masses, I could not support more. However, to villainize the SEC, who is stepping in and saying, look, we have to be able to fight against market manipulation because of the danger it poses to America and the world, not just CEOs and board members. It's that the economy we cannot allow a group of internet trolls to upset the market. Very specifically in the regional banking crisis. It's one thing when it is a video game company, brick and mortar video game company like GameStop. It's another thing entirely if that is going to start affecting, major markets. So that's it. I just thought it was important to talk through that. And I hope this has been informative. I'll talk to you soon.